On a freezing cold night, way back in 2004, a young woman disappears from the side of a lonely road in New Hampshire. All she leaves behind is her locked car and a mystery that would basically set the internet on fire.
I mean, think about that scene. It's so simple, and that's what makes it so chilling. A single car accident, stuck in a snowbank. But there's no driver, no signs of a struggle. She's just gone. And that immediately raises the one big question. For 20 years now, that question has just hung in the air. It's haunted her family, it's stumped law enforcement, and it's obsessed an entire generation of online detectives. So today, we're going to dig into the case that really, you could argue, started it all.
And to even try to figure this out, you have to start with the person at the very center of it. So who exactly was Maura Murray?
Well, on paper, Maura looked like she had it all together. She was a bright 21-year-old studying to be a nurse at UMass Amherst. She was a star athlete on the track team, and she came from a really close family. You know, she had a whole future ahead of her. But behind this picture, something was starting to unravel. So let's rewind to the days right before she went missing, because this is where the story gets incredibly confusing. There was this series of really strange and stressful events that just paints a picture of someone who was seriously struggling. The timing of all this is what's so jarring. It's just one thing after another. On a Thursday, she has this minor run-in with the law, totally out of character. On Saturday, she crashes her dad's car. Then, on that Monday, she emails her professors about a family emergency that, well, her family knew nothing about. She packs up her car and just starts driving north. But where was she going? To this day, nobody really knows. And that drive takes her here, to Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. This is where the timeline shrinks from a few chaotic days down to just a handful of minutes, and every single second counts. So it's just after 7:20 p.m. A woman who lives nearby hears a loud crash. She looks out her window, sees Maura's black Saturn stuck in a snowbank, and she calls out to the driver. But here's the first weird thing. That wasn't true. We know from phone records she hadn't called anyone for help. So why would she lie? Why turn away the very first person offering to help you out? Okay, so a few minutes go by, and a local school bus driver, a guy named Butch Atwood, he sees the crash and pulls over. He asks if she wants him to call the police. And again, she says no. Don't worry about it. She's already called AAA. He said she didn't seem hurt, maybe just a little shaken up and cold, but really seemed like she just wanted him to leave. So he drives home, and he calls the police anyway. And this is the absolute core of the mystery. The time between Butch Atwood leaving her there on the side of the road and the very first police officer showing up was only about 10 minutes. And in that tiny, tiny window of time, she was gone. The scene the police found was just baffling. The car was locked. Her personal stuff, her phone, credit cards, things you would never leave behind in the freezing cold, it was all still inside. And the most chilling part? There were footprints leading away from the car that just stopped in the middle of the snow. It's like she was just plucked right off the road. So when you've got a scene that makes absolutely zero sense, you're going to get theories. And over the past 2 decades, 3 main possibilities have really taken center stage in this conversation. All right, let's walk through these. First, the idea that she ran away to start a new life. I mean, the packed car, the fake email about an emergency, that definitely points in that direction. But then again, why would you leave your money and your ID? And would she really just ghost her family forever? Okay, so what about foul play? She refused help, maybe she was waiting for someone, or some predator just saw a chance. But after all this time, there are 0 suspects, no real evidence of an attack. And then there's the tragic idea that she just wandered off into the woods and died from the cold. But huge, extensive searches of that area have turned up nothing. Not a body, not a piece of clothing, not a single trace. And because none of those theories gives us a clean answer, a completely different kind of investigation kicked off. This one wasn't in the woods of New Hampshire. No, it was on computer screens all over the world. And this is really Maura Murray's second story. Her disappearance was one of the very first cases to just explode online. Early internet forums like Web Sleuths and then later Reddit became these massive hubs for people to just pick apart every single detail, float new theories, and basically invent the idea of crowdsourcing a criminal investigation. Honestly, you can trace the entire true crime podcast and documentary boom that we have today right back to this one case.
But we always have to remember, behind all the forums and the speculation, there is a family. For 20 years, her father, Fred Murray, has just relentlessly kept searching. He keeps going back to that same spot on Route 112, just hoping for a clue, any answer that might bring him some kind of peace.
And that kind of leaves us with this one last thought, doesn't it? This is a story about a very personal tragedy that happened on a dark, lonely road. But its story has been kept alive, for better or for worse, by the glow of millions of computer screens. What does that even mean when one person's worst nightmare becomes a global pastime?
The search for Maura Murray is still very much active. If you or anybody you know has any information, no matter how small or insignificant you think it might be, please contact the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. You never know, the one clue that finally solves this thing could still be out there.